So today let's take a closer in-depth look at this case by Thermaltake. This is the Tower 500. Now I have the Snow Edition with me today, but they also do make this in a black version if you're interested. Now I'm super excited about this case. Last year I had the opportunity to do a build in the mini tower version of this, the Tower 100, and I've really enjoyed that case. I like the look of that. Now you might also be familiar with the Tower 900, which is just the big brother of this. It's a ginormous full tower case. There's some amazing builds done with that case. You know, check it out online if you want to know more. Now, I haven't had an opportunity to do a build in that case, but over the last year, since I really liked the 100, I thought a mid-tower version of this would be really cool. So here it is. I've purchased this with my own money. I don't have any affiliation with Thermaltake. Just really kind of liked the Tower 100. But in this video, I'm going to go ahead and get this unboxed. We'll do a complete teardown. We'll talk about some of the functions and supportability of it, how many fans you can do, radiator support, PSU, GPU links, things like that. So anyways, hopefully this video will give you just a good overview of what the capabilities of this case will be. So let's go ahead and get it unboxed and get started. So the Tower 500 leaves a very positive impression just out of the box. For me, it's the perfect size. I think it's going to look great sitting up on the desk, and I'm super excited to do the build in this one. The very first thing you want to do is get the top cover off. Now, you need to do that in order to get all of the side panels off. So your first step is to get the very top cover off, and there's just a couple of push points up here. They're marked on this lid. Just push them and then release them. It's just a couple of push button mechanisms, and then the top cover comes off, a couple of hooks on the other side, and comes right out. This is a filtered panel. This filter material is just permanently installed, so set that aside. Once you get that done, this top plastic cover just pops off. There's no screws on this, so basically you just want to grab it and give it a firm yank. Not forcefully, but it does need to be firm. It's just got these compression fittings here on these posts. Just need to pop those out of there. Just give it kind of a good little jerk and it'll pop right off. So once we've got that removed, we can go ahead and start removing all of the panels here. Now basically they just lift up and off. So they just lift up about a ½ inch and then just pull away from the chassis. So let's go ahead and get all those removed and set those aside. Now these pieces on the side do have removable filter material and just pops off like that. Sticks back on nice and easy. Perfect. All right, so once we've got all those side panels removed, we can remove the bottom side panels, and there's just a screw underneath of each one. Undo that screw. Now these screws are not captive. They will fall off, so just be mindful of that when you're going so you don't have to go chasing them around. But get the screw out, and then the panel just drops off. So each of these bottom side panels have their own filter. It just kind of clips in there, sticks in, very nice. And let's go ahead and remove all three of those all the way around. So once we've got those set aside, we can come around the back and remove the back panel. And this has a big filter back here. Now this one is magnetically attached. All right, so let's go ahead and get the back panel off. Now this is just held on by 2 thumb screws. Now these screws are captive, and I'm not sure why they chose to do that here and not like on the bottom. Would have made even more sense on these bottom side pieces, but it is what it is. It's not a big deal. Anyways, once you undo those, just rotate that off, and it's just got a couple little clips down on the bottom that hold it in. Now, getting that back cover off exposes this fan and drive cage back here. Now, you get a lot of different options on this cage. You get 2 pre-installed 120mm fans. They've got these set up as exhaust fans right here, which I think the whole idea for cooling of this is to kind of be a chimney. So, intake all in the front and then exhaust, kind of in the top and the rear. Now, obviously, with any cooling situation, your results are going to vary. You'll have to kind of play around with it. But that's how they've got this pre-configured from the factory. There's nothing fancy about these fans. There's no RGB in them, anything like that. So you could replace them, obviously. But you do get the ability to do 120mm fans here, or you can put a 140mm fan, one of each, or you could mix and match if you want. And so it's got the holes for both of those. So to get this plate out, because a lot of your drives are going to mount here as well, there's just 2 thumb screws up here. Get those removed. Those are captive screws as well, which is always nice. Basically, this then just rotates out. It's got a couple clips down at the bottom, and just pull it out like so. So let's go over this drive cage for a second. You get a bunch of different options as far as to what storage devices you can add to this. Right from the factory, you've got these 2 little top pieces here. That will hold 2 2.5-inch drives each, so a total of 4 just on this. There's some other options here we'll go over in a minute. And then this bottom piece here, you can get a 3.5-inch drive in. So just as the way it's pre-configured from the factory, you could get 4 2.5-inch drives and 2 3.5-inch drives. So lots of storage ability here. It also does show the ability to remove all of these, and there's just 4 screws holding this top piece on. Thermaltake does also show the option of removing the fans and adding 3.5-inch drives in these locations here. This is all pre-configured with rubber grommets here for vibration control. I did notice though, however, on the one side here, those rubber grommets are missing. So I don't know if that's a quality control issue or if maybe they're included in the little bag or something. I'm not sure yet. But anyways, not a big deal, at least for me. I'm not going to use that many 3.5-inch drives in it. But I'll take a look in that bag and see if there's some extra replacements in there. But you could go ahead and remove both of these. And from there, you can install your 2.5-inch drives. There's no rubber grommets, of course, in these here. The fans are screwed in from the inside part. Easy to remove, easy to put in, orient those how you want. So that's really about all there is to this. This has really got some flexibility. Now, I don't think there's any ability on this piece here where the drives go to add another fan. It's not really geared for that. So of course, there's always mod options if you want to put more fans in it. But this case really has got a lot of room for fans to begin with. Okay, so staying on the back of the case, this is the power supply mount. It's just got a couple of thumb screws as well. I suppose it's not really necessary to remove this cage. And those are not captive screws either. So I'm not sure why they chose to do that on some and not the other. But maybe that just kind of unclips and comes out. You could slide that over your power supply and bolt it back in. But you've got plenty of room. You can just install the thing from inside too. It doesn't really matter. On the bottom, you do get a power supply dust filter, which is removable. All right, so looking at the top of this, you can remove this fan and radiator cage up at the top here. Now, I don't know necessarily that you would need to in every situation. Just know that it does come off if it's helpful to you. It's just a number of different screws holding it on here. However, you do need to remove the front panel to get that off. And there are 2 screws holding the front panel on. Just one on each side. Now, if you already had this all cabled up, you wouldn't want to do this because you'd have all of these cables, you know, nicely done, and it'd be a real hassle to do this. So the front I/O panel will give you 1 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C ports, 4 of the USB 3.0 ports, microphone and headphone jack, and power button and reset switch. But that does come off nice and easy, which then exposes this whole top cage, which is 1, 2, I think it's 4 screws. So 4 screws, and it just pops off. So using this top bracket, you get the ability to add 2 120mm fans, or you can add 2 140mm fans. From a radiator perspective, you can do up to a 240 or a 280mm radiator on this top bracket here. So included is your bag of parts, which includes all your extra screws, some cable ties. It looks like it includes some of the additional rubber grommets that we're missing over here. So good touch there. Anyways, you should have everything you need. All right, so obviously you can remove each of the PCI slot covers. They're held on by a very nice thumb screw. It's nice and tight. We're not going to remove all of those in this case. There's no need to. But there's 9 slots here. Now this case supports mini ATX, micro ATX, ATX, I think EEB and CEB motherboards as well if you happen to have one of those. So looking inside the case here, we get a couple of power supply covers. Now these are optional, they're not necessary. You do get some additional mounting abilities with these. On each one of them, you can do a 120mm fan, 140mm fan. So it's got slots for 2 2.5-inch SSDs each, or 1 3.5-inch drive. So more drive storage, more fan ability if you need that. So Thermaltake also gives you the ability to mount fans or radiator on the left or the right side. And they've included the 2 rails to do that. Now they only include 2. Now I suppose you could do the left and the right side together. Maybe you could order a couple of these from Thermaltake. I do not know. Might be able to get some cool looks from that. The documentation doesn't show you doing that, but obviously that could be done. Anyways, to mount these, you're just going to get them out of the bag. And the documentation's pretty clear as to what holes and slots you need to screw these into. Now it looks like on the bottom screw here, this doesn't actually screw into the case. It looks like it's just being used more as a post. So basically you're just going to set that in the hole. There's a rubber grommet there for vibration. And then it's pretty clear. It shows you which slot up top here to screw this into. And you're just going to mount that like so. And then do that with the second one. Now, obviously, if you're going to do a radiator, you could do it after. You could do it before or after. It's not a big deal either way. But you're going to put this second one in, this front hole right here. I don't believe there's any other location that you can do it. So you're going to mount this in the front hole here. And I think when I do it, I'll probably mount the hardware up first. I'm not sure. I'll have to play with it and see how it behaves. Either way, it's not a big deal. And then get that tightened down. And obviously you can put 3 120 millimeter fans here or up to a 360 millimeter radiator in here. Your choice. And again, I think that'll look pretty cool. It looks pretty nice and fairly simple to install. Now obviously you don't have to do a 360 millimeter rad in there. You could use a combination of anything beneath that. It will not accept 140 millimeter fans. Now, to remove these power supply covers, there's just 4 screws, 2 screws for each of them. Nice and easy. We'll just get those pulled out. And once those are out, they're just kind of clipped in. You just slide it over and it just comes straight out. And same with the other one. Just go ahead and remove both of those. Now in the lower front here, you get this mounting bracket. It gives you a couple of different options. You can mount fans vertically like it's installed from the factory, or you can put them in a horizontal position if you choose. Now there's 2 screws on each side that will remove this bracket. There's a 3rd screw here that will remove this Thermaltake logo cross member here, but you won't need to remove that in most cases. So we'll get these screws out of here. Remove them from each side. All right, so once you get those screws out, go ahead and remove this bottom bracket here. You can go ahead and install your fans. Now you can install 220 millimeter fans, and that's it. You don't, it will not fit 140 millimeter fans on the front. Radiator wise, you can get a 240 millimeter radiator in here as all. Now you get the ability to mount these vertical, the way that it comes configured from the factory, or you can mount it down on its side and mount it in a horizontal position. Now in the bottom of the case here is another dust filter. So if you want to bring air up from the bottom, you can do that. Now one caveat to this is once you mount this in the bottom here, and basically you're just going to re-rotate it, and it has the correct screw holes for you to reorient it. And then your fans would be sitting in here and you'd pull air up. Once you do that, there's no ability for you to put the power covers back in, because this bracket also acts as the ledge into which those power covers bolt. And I see no other way that you can do it. So if you choose to go into a horizontal flat position on the fans, you're going to lose the ability to do these power covers. Now there's going to be occasions definitely on some builds where that's going to be what you want, you know, to do some of the longer GPUs and things like that, or if you're going to do some water pumps and everything, which there are some mounting holes over here. Thermaltake shows a couple of their own models in the documentation, but does have some of the mounting holes for the water pumps. So if you're going to do that type of stuff, you're not going to be using the power covers anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But anyways, be aware of that once you go ahead and decide to go horizontal with this, you're not going to be able to get these power covers put back in. And so, you know, it's really kind of either or. That's, I think, just to be all things to all people and let you have the maximum amount of options with this case to mount everything in. So, but that would just screw back in. You could screw all your things, you could screw all your components back in and looks good. So you can remove this front logo cross member. There's 4 screws that hold that in. I don't think there's a whole lot of reason in most cases to remove it. You know, sometimes if you're doing some custom water builds and loops and things like that, definitely might help you to get that build done, and then you can put it back in. But I think it's good that it is removable, but there's no real functionality, you know, out of the box that you need to remove it for. Once you get all 4 screws out, you just pull that out, set it aside, do whatever you need to do with it. There's no mounting options or anything that gives you. So the motherboard tray supports mini ITX, micro ATX, ATX, EEB, and CEB. Now, when I got this apart and I looked on here, Thermaltake has stamped this is accepting an eATX motherboard. I think there's a lot of crossover. I think they're even maybe the same thing technically. So if you choose to use those larger motherboards and you're going to use these bottom motherboard mounts, you are going to lose the ability to use the power supply covers as well, because they will extend into that space. So anyways, just be aware of that. I think the vast majority of everybody's probably going to use an ATX motherboard on here, so I don't know. Let me know in the comments below if you're using eATX, EEB, CEB boards, some of those types of server boards in here. I'd just be curious to know what everybody's using. All right, so anyways, that is about it. The bottom, there's nothing else really removable. All right, so we've got this tore down about as far as we can get it to go. Everything else from here is riveted in, so unless you're gonna start doing some mod type work, that's about as far as you're going to be able to get it. Everything comes apart really easy on it. There's nothing difficult here. It strips down fairly quickly, and anyways, it gives you lots of working room. In fact, you don't even need to remove probably half of what we just removed to really work on it. But anyways, this just will be a really nice build. I think it gives you plenty of working room. So as far as quality, I haven't encountered any issues except for just a couple little things. As I mentioned earlier, the rubber grommets, the rubber pads, where the drives mount, are missing on the one side, but I think there's some replacements there, so not a big deal. The only other issue I've really noticed is this top cover is kind of warped a little bit. Now, when I say that, don't get the wrong impression. It's not like it's really obvious, but as it sits along the back there, it's just raised up ever so slightly in the center. And I think probably that is by design a little bit, so that you can grab this little lip on here once you push the buttons and let it go up. But it is noticeable that it sticks. It's not flush the way that it sits here, and it looks like maybe over time, maybe it would become flush. But anyways, I don't know if they're all gonna look like that. Maybe, again, let me know in the comments below if your case kind of doesn't sit totally flush in the back. That may just be normal. From the front, you can't see it. It's only when you're back, and I'm really nitpicking to find anything wrong with it. So not a big deal. I really personally just like the look of it. It's got tons of options for cooling, lots of fans, radiator support. It'll be a good case to do some custom water loops in if that's what you choose to do. Tons of options for storage, more than I'm gonna need with it anyways. And so anyways, I'm super excited to do the build in this case. I'm gonna do that build over the next week. I'll do a separate video on that, and so stay tuned for that and show you what I come up with there. A couple of specifications you should be aware of before you build in this case is the maximum PSU length is 200 millimeters. The GPU limitations are, if you're going to use the power cover, then 325 millimeters is the maximum you can use. But you can remove that power cover and use up to a 355 millimeter graphics card. So the maximum CPU heatsink length is going to be 275 millimeters. That's from the motherboard, from the CPU out towards the front of the case. That'll be a limitation, so make sure you check that if you're going to do air cooling with this case. So anyways, that said, super excited to get to it. I'll put that video out here in the next week or so. After I get this build done, I'll be working on that. I do also have on order, Thermaltake makes a new plate for the front that comes with a little LCD screen. That was on back order when I ordered this. I think it has shipped at the time I'm filming this and maybe be here later this week. So probably do a video on that as well, but I do have that coming. Anyways, if you have any questions, comments, concerns about this case, please let me know. I'd be happy to hear what your experiences are with it. What do you think of this case? And if you have any questions about it that I can help with, put them in the comments below. I'm happy to help out when I can get to those. Anyways, that's going to do it for today. Thanks for watching.